Okay, we got this started recording. All right, and welcome. Let me just start to share this out. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for the folks that have joining us from around the world. My name is Brian Murray. I am the advisory solution consultant with ServiceNow. I'm aligned with the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and I've been with ServiceNow for about 5.5, almost 6 years. And what we're going to focus on today in the next hour, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, is our IT operations management, visibility, and health tech talk for this session. And let me just go through our quick little agenda here. What we'll start off with is I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page of what our platform is in a basic overview, ServiceNow platform overview, as well as our CMDB, which is our configuration management database overview, the CMDB and Discovery, and beyond Discovery to service mapping and minimizing service outages. While I'm doing that, hold on a second here. Got to let some folks in. Nope. All right. Let's go right from there. And get back in there. Okay, so we'll get started with the agenda. And as we go through this, I'll give a little presentation, a little backup about what we're talking about, and then go into a quick demo or a longer demo about that. Now, from a ServiceNow platform perspective, I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page here. ServiceNow was designed and developed back in 2004. And over that time, there have been various suites that have been added to the actual platform. We started off with our IT service management section over here, where basically your incident, problem, change requests. And from that, that was actually servicing the employees about the IT configurations and so forth. Then customers started to like that so much, they asked, hey, instead of managing and doing that for the people, our employees, can you do the same thing about the configuration items, the assets, making sure that we have them correlated in a CMDB, making sure that there's relationships and so on, and taking events from things like Splunk or SolarWinds and so on, to make sure that the lights are on and we can keep it up and so forth, and instead of being reactive, be proactive. And that's what we're going to concentrate on here today, is our IT operations space right here. Okay. Now, at the core of the platform, just want to make sure everyone's here, is the ServiceNow is not a tool. Right? It's a combination of a lot of tools inside the actual platform. And one of the core pieces of the platform is what we have, the configuration management database, which is the CMDB, the database, right? And that's where we store our configuration items, or as well as our assets and so forth. And that's how it harmonizes together to keep those configurations items together and connected.
I'm not seeing the presentation.
Oh, we're not starting the presentation? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Pop it in and out. Oh, great. Live demonstrations, right? Okay, and so thank you. So at the core of the platform that we're talking about is we're going to talk about the IT operations management, that suite that came in. And part of that, what that connects into, a lot of it is dealing with the configuration items, the assets, right? And bringing in the events from other systems that you invested in, like Splunk, SolarWinds, and others, right? And that's really being tied together at the center of the platform. It was within our configuration management database, our CMDB. That's one of the many tools that we have within inside the platform. So the other suites that you see on the outside of this stadium / football, rugby ball, whatever you want to call it, come together to help harmonize everything together, because it's one architecture, right? All the applications within inside ServiceNow are written on the same code bases, right? So it's so easy to keep the ITSM app suite connected to the ITOM suite, as well as the business management, asset management, and so forth. So it's all on one platform, and it's one data model, making it very extremely easy, going from one table to another table to another related table, right? That's what we'll show you here when we do some live discovery and some service mapping and event management. Right? Now, at the core of it, as we can see here, that we're the platform of platforms, right? And what we mean by that, starting from the top down, since we're in the federal market here, just want to make sure that everyone's aware that we're impact level high with FedRAMP, okay? And that the users have different experiences gaining access to the platform itself, right? Some folks like to work with the mobile devices, right? So you can use that in our FedRAMP GCC environment. Others interact with the web browsers of choice, right? Others now with the other tools that we're getting like Slack and Teams that we're working with right now, they can interact at that enterprise layer to work with the various workflows. And we've got IT workflows that we're concentrating on today, employee workflows, citizen workflows, and one of my favorites is the App Engine workflows. So those are those mission critical apps that aren't out of the box or out of the cloud these days, right? And so going from that layer down, those applications and interactions work with the integrations and workflows, as well as being able to look at data from different angles and so forth, and start to get access to those common tools that we had seen from the previous slide, as well as taking advantage of new technologies such as the machine learning and artificial intelligence within inside the platform about that data. Now, off to the right is something that we're going to start to deal with today is integrations, right? Integrating with other systems such as Splunk or SolarWinds or maybe a homegrown system that you want to keep up and running, but you lack the ability for workflow. So ServiceNow can work as that system of action around that to help your investment that you've done with existing systems. Now, other people have asked me like, hey, what's the difference between this and this? There are different systems of record where you want to keep your data and where they do their systems of action. ServiceNow is basically considered the system of record for IT, where you get other systems of record for infrastructure such as AWS, Azure. If you want to get some security from Titanium and Splunk, they can do that. But you see, they can tie in primarily with the CMDB. Right, and I'll show you an example of that when we do event management. And as we go through the actual systems of record layer based off of the vertical, you can see how things different tie in, like Dynamics and Salesforce, right? Maybe you want to help support the workflows within inside ServiceNow, or ServiceNow supports them from an IT perspective or from just general workflow perspective. Yeah. So from a top down, that's what it looks like from a platform of platforms. So we are that system of action that can help you get through. Now, going on here, the first thing that we're looking at is, okay, the core of what I mentioned before was the CMDB, all right? Now, from an ITOM perspective, okay, you need the CMDB, and the CMDB is as good as it is as the data that's within inside it, right? And from that perspective, we can start to look at things such as the CMDB health dashboard, right? And what we can see from here is like completeness. Are the CI fields populated, for example, adequately, okay? And so from that perspective, you can start to see different perspectives like, hey, does the configuration item that we have found, does it have an owner? Is there an actual cost center to help you out right here? Is there an actual location? So if you want to start to figure out, hey, if you still have on-prem things, hey, is this asset, this configuration item in this bay, this rack, and so forth. But now things are coming in the cloud, we can do the same thing. Okay? So that's part of that data. And we're also going to start to look at compliance. Right? If you want to put compliance, do my configuration items meet the policies that we have in play, right? Do we have from a security level the minimum patching, right? Because it's not just keeping operations together, but security operations comes into play too, because it's the same record. They'll be looking at it from vulnerability perspective and compliance perspective. Well, from an operations perspective, we're looking at it, making sure that it's up and running and that it's fit, right? So that our customers, internal and external, can take advantage of that. So we can want to look at that from that data perspective. And likewise, are there a number of duplicates or stale or orphaned type of configurations out there, right? So for example, staleness might be that we've got the CI, the configuration item in the actual CMDB, but we haven't found it or updated it within 3 months, right? Or 2 months, whatever you want to do. The configuration management database dashboard here allows you to look at that from that perspective. So that's the core of the system, right? Continuously analyzing of the quality of the data within inside the CMDB is a starting point. And I'm going to be like, hey, how do I get there? Well, from a ServiceNow perspective, the CMDB needs to be an automated feed of input. And that's through ServiceNow Discovery. Now, other people have to say, hey, I want to use my other tools. Yeah, you can use your tools, but how good is that data? Does it really get down to what's the software installed it? When was it last installed? Where is this connected? What's the relationship? How does it make up this big puzzle, right? So our discovery technology is agentless, which is a nice thing, right? So you don't have to install something. It's continuous as well. So you can run it on demand, or you can schedule them, and you can do different things, such as, hey, I want to find this IP range. I want to find this IP range, right? And it's secure, meaning that we've got our connections that are TLS protected for outbound initiation. So you don't have to punch a hole through the firewall. It's just going to go through 443. And from that perspective, you could have multiple mid servers. And the mid server, for those that are not familiar with it, it's a Windows or Linux service that's installed locally inside your environment or up in a cloud, such as AWS or Azure or Google, where it can do the management and instrumentation and discovery, which is the D in mid server, okay, of what we need to do, right, on-prem or in the cloud. So in this case, from a discovery perspective, we'll be able to find out those items with an IP address that are enabled and so forth. So again, you can use it on a Linux box or a Windows box, and you're good to go. Or you can do a hybrid of on-prem or in cloud, right? And so from that perspective, you can see, hey, I've got this mid-server one that is on-prem, and it's doing what we were entitled to do, where it pulls that information into the CMDB, right? So is it a computer? Is it a router? Is it a server? What type of server? Is it a Unix server? Is it a Windows server? All different types of servers. And so that's what the CMDB does. It starts to look at that data, says, oh, no, you're going to go over here and you either created or, hey, you already exist, you're updated. And I'll show you that fairly shortly. Okay. So how does that happen? Okay. At a high level, all right, there's the discovery process. And at the first phase, when we kick off, it's doing a port scan. It's looking at the instance is basically initiates what we call a Shazam probe is launched, right? And the mid server performs a port scan on the defined IP ranges that you've set. And you can have different ways of doing it. It returns the open ports. And so by doing that, the Shazam, excuse me, old old superhero from back in the day, right? The sensor determines which device are active or discovered based on the known protocols, and that's where we come into play there, right? And then once it finds it, says, hey, I found something, we need to do some classification. So using the credentials that you've got with inside ServiceNow, and there's different ways we can do that. The known credentials for that protocol, the probe for each of those devices gathers additional classification information, and then it starts to store, starts to look at that. Then we get an identification phase, right? And there's 4 phases here, where the probes for each are classified device and gathers additional information, identifying them and so forth. And therefore, it's populating the CMDB, queries the CMD for a matching device and so forth. So it's doing an identification and saying that, oh, you don't exist, so I'm actually going to create the actual CI in there. Now, the nice thing about that when we're starting to create them, now we're talking about configuration items, but on the other side of the coin, it creates an asset record. All right, even though we're not talking about assets here, but that's just to get your financial details, your contract details, manufacturing details, right? Your financials and so forth. When's the last refresh? We're on the configuration side because we're dealing with IT operations. We want to know what it is, what it's talking to, and so forth, and when it was last updated. Go through there. And then finally, we get to the exploration area where we're reading the device, and then we're actually getting the sensors to process the results and update the CMDB and trigger additional probes if necessary. You can create your own probes. Right? So again and again, goes right through there. So what I'll do, I'm going to jump out of my presentation here. I'm going to give you a live demo of Discovery that we've got. And let me just get into my instance here. Okay. Now, what I've done is that I've set up a mid server in my home here in Sykesville, Maryland, right? And what I want to show you is how this actually works, right? So you get a different, you set up a discovery schedule. And from that schedule, you hook up with a mid server, right? And so right now, what I do every night around like 11 o'clock in the evening, okay, is that I launch, or actually ServiceNow tells the mid server to go out there and find this information, right? What we're looking for, right? And so from that perspective, what we can do here, I'm just going to discover now, and from this discovery, it's actually being launched. So you can do it on demand or through a schedule, right? And so what we can start to see here, here's the actual record for the discovery going on. So it's active, it just started. And you'll see here that there should be some information starting to get populated. And so if I go to the devices tab, you can start to see, we'll see, if there we go, starting to get populated right now. So what's happening, it's doing those phases of, oh, okay, there we go, sorry about that. Minimize that. It's starting to do the classification, identifying. In this case, it's doing an updating of the CI that we have here. And you can see here that it's found a printer, and this one's being classified as a computer, and then therefore it's going through its actual process. Some of the things it's finding, it's IP enabled, but we just either don't have the credentials, or we don't have the appropriate probe ready. Now, if I just refresh, you can start to see everything has been completed and so forth from the actual process of doing the 4 phases, the Shazam through the identity and so forth. Now, if we dive into the actual configuration item, which is the Brian PC, you can see some of the data that it's classified with. In some cases, you can put it assigned to or who's it managed by, but we're really looking at that information that it gathers for this type of classification, which is actually a computer classification, right? If I scroll through this, one little piece of the actual CMDB, this is classified as a computer, we can see other related information, all right? And so this is where it starts to look at, hey, we look at the dependency mapping of here and say, hey there, Brian PC, you were also at that given time talking to something like SQL Server and some other things and so forth, right? And you can start to look at some of that data. And from an ITM perspective, IT service management perspective, we can start to see if there's anything related to any changes, problems, incidents, and if there's any active problems with that configuration item. Now, this is just a PC. We're doing the same thing for servers, routers, switches, and so forth. But I don't have a lot of that in my house for this live demo. But just as an example, you can start to see some of the other things that are selected here or found. So if I look at the software installation tab here, and I've hidden some related lists due to the fact that there's some information that I don't want to expose. But for example, it finds the software that's installed here. This one has over 500 different installations of software. And so from that perspective, what we can start to see that is like, okay, we're not only finding that hardware, right? We're also finding that software, and those are also configuration items. But if I'm looking at this from a holistic view of the platform, I'm also seeing that software could be our software asset management, right, module. It'll tie right into that. So it makes sense to do software asset management with Discovery inside ServiceNow. It just makes life a lot more convenient instead of importing that data in. Because how old is that data? How reliable it is? It gets back to that CMDB. Other things are, hey, that's from a software asset management perspective, but we're also looking at that from a vulnerability perspective as well. Remember, it's that same configuration item that the software asset management people are looking at, ITSM, as well as our security operations, right? Hey, they're classifying it. It's one together as one, just doing their own thing in different perspectives of their responsibility at work there. Okay, so we can go on and on with that. And so I just wanted to show you how that would work and how that gets classified with inside the system by running a live demo on that perspective. Okay. Now, moving on. Since we did that type of discovery, one of the things I want to show you here is that, okay, think about that configuration item, that printer, that router, that PC that we have found. Okay, that's like one piece that goes into that 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, right? Of a puzzle box, right? And so you can see here, you got CMDB plus Discovery gives you about 1,000 pieces to that jigsaw puzzle box, right? So that's where you go, right? What I've got a starting point. So you got that crawl, walk, run type of thing. And what we can do from this perspective is start to take those pieces, right? You start to collect them, right? And you categorize them and see where they go. And ServiceNow does that for you. You'll be amazed at what it discovers and so forth. And the next thing that we want to get into, right, is, okay, we want to actually put those pieces together. And putting those pieces together will give you that bigger picture. If I snap this together, I snap that together, now you got a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that puts the picture together, right? And so how does that work? Well, from that perspective, what we have here is we want to go beyond discovery, right? We want to get from that crawl to that walk and to that run. And then sprinting comes in another play where we want to do discover, right? So what we just did there is we discovered horizontally, but we'll want to go vertically. And then Discover gets your load balancers, servers, and so forth, as we had mentioned before. Then you can start to see what I mentioned with that dependency mapping. Hey, last time we checked, you were talking to this, and this, and this, and this, right? So, and what applications we're running on, and so forth. Okay, so you're actually starting to put those pieces together, right? You start to see that, oh, I start in the upper right-hand corner, and I start to work my way out. With service mapping, okay, what we're able to do is get that business service and identify it by putting those pieces together, right? And putting them together so that you can start to monitor them, see the plan changes, unplanned changes, or if there's an event that occurred in the cloud infrastructure or on-prem, you could trigger the rediscovery. So it's keeping those business service maps together from a higher perspective, right? And so you're going to get that vertical approach. So you're starting with discovery, populating the CMDB, then putting those pieces together, right? Making sure that, hey, I got the big picture. But you know what? Once you take a piece away from that jigsaw puzzle, right? From you saw before, take one down, right? Well, you take one down, what happens? It starts to fall apart. Well, what we want to do here is taking those pieces together, we want to minimize the service outages with our IT operations. And what is that, right? You hate to get that phone call like, hey, I can't access XYZ, or something, it's slowing down. You know, what's going on? What went bump in the middle of the night, right? 2 a.m., you're getting a phone call and so forth. That's where we want to bring our event management into play and tying it into the CMDB and then remediating that. So your investments in your event monitoring tools or your homegrown tools, you can take advantage of that and integrate them with inside ServiceNow, such as Splunk, SolarWinds, and so forth. And what you can do here is that at stage one, you can map out your infrastructure, right? That's your first stage, getting them out, mapping it together. And usually you want to map out your top 25%, the most critical ones, and then so forth. You can break them apart by cost and so forth, and we can show you that. Then what we're doing is that we want to vitally keep those service maps constant, up to date. And as I mentioned before, you can have them schedulely run, or if there's an event that occurs, like add another server to the actual service map, boom, goes right on in, right? So if you're doing some cloud management and you need to spawn up an Elastic part there, you can trigger and say, hey, redo the service map, right? Then step 3 here, then we can start to ingest those events. You know, you get the needle in the haystack. That's what we're looking for, because those event monitoring tools, they have a lot of data, and that data is what we want to get. We want to get that needle in the haystack that can cause that potential problem. And then what we're looking at here is that once that problem comes in, or that a lack of better terms, there's a whole bunch of events, then out of the events, an alert will arise, right? And that alert is something that you can configure with inside the system, or actually from like Splunk to say, or SolarWinds, for example, hey, this occurred, send it over to ServiceNow so we can prioritize the issue and automate the fixes. And then from a visibility perspective, you get to see the bigger picture, right? You can see what's red, what's yellow, what's green, good, green, yellow, something's going on, red, not good. Right? We want to make sure that our customers are happy and that they can be able to do their mission, right? And so that's the thing. We've seen things out there. The SolarWinds guys say everything's green. The Splunk guys are like everything's green, but you know what? The customers are submitting incidents. They're calling. You're like, okay, what's going on? Why are the lights going down, right? And so what we'll do here, we'll do a a demonstration of service mapping and event management together, and then to remediate the actual issue. And that will be our last part of the actual demonstration. And we'll just do a quick recap. So I'm going to go back to my instance. Okay? And let me go back out of here for my configuration item in my database, right? And here's my CMDB dashboard that I've got here that's being scheduled jobs that are running and looking at the health and so forth. And so from this perspective, what we want to look at is our agent workspace. Okay, our agent workspace is a way that you can have a different way of looking at ServiceNow and working. Again, it gets back to the way that different users interact with the system. And so our IT operator workspace, it can give you visibility of all your business services that are critical to you. Different ways we can do that, right? The service breakdown, anything that's critical, anything that's major, and so forth. But everything right now, there's 25 of them, 100% are A-OK. You know, that's the and you can start to, if you wanted to, start searching through this like a keyword search off of this. Hey, look at this from an enterprise perspective, and you can start to organize your business services. And this is helpful from an enterprise architect perspective too. They can leverage this data and say, hey, I need to know a little bit about this business service, this mission service. So you can start to do your searches of your architecture, right? So everything is green, A-OK at this perspective, right? Now, let's have something go bump in the middle of the night. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to generate an example alert. Now, this is what we were talking about before, how we can connect from a disparate system or an event system such as Splunk, our source. Splunk's going to also have some information that we need to act on. So we need to know the node that is going to have that problem. What's the problem? We got the SAN storage issue, the resource, and so forth. So this is going to help us kind of get the root cause analysis. And so this is going to be an event rule that gets generated and so forth. So if it's critical, severity, and so forth, right? So I'm just going to generate this event. This is an example. So it comes in. Now, with inside ServiceNow, we're looking at ways of taking that noise, right? That haystack of noise, and we need to find that needle. So you get a whole bunch of events that come into play. And from that perspective, we want to get that alert, right? And so what has been critical here is we're going through here and we're going to look at this actual event that came in. Because you get a lot more events than you get actual alerts. And so what has happened here is that coming through this event that was just created, okay, we can see that, yep, it means what we need, okay? Something is going to go down within about 2 hours or an hour. Okay, so we got a low storage running on low disk, and it actually created this alert. Now the alert, okay, if I just go back over here, should fire up the dashboard like, boom, okay, we have an alert, all hands on deck, what's going on? Well, we have that configuration item that's supporting these other business services. And so you can start to see we went from 100% to 68%, and things went critical to 32%, right? Like, okay, let's start to look at these things. So if I wanted to see my my system here called CCATS, or C's assets and case tracing or tracking, you can see some information. We can start to look at the actual service details, right? Start to dive in there and say, this is red. What else is associated to it? Okay, so you can start to bring in those different pieces of the CMDB and also the platform that makes sense to the operator. And from this perspective, we could see what type it was, the service type, what was discovered. We can start to look again at CI health, right? If we have anything that comes through here that's critical changes, any incidents, we can start to tie through any attributes that have changed and so forth, staleness and so forth, right? We can start to see any timeline changes over the last 14 days if you wish to do so. And we'll start to look at some additional information, general information about it, any activity or conversations that were happening, or any instructions you wanted to see from there. Another thing that we can do is actually look at the actual service map from this perspective. And we can start to see here from this service map what it looks like from a top-down perspective, right? We're taking in the actual service map that we discovered and put together. Those pieces of Jigsaw Puzzle coming together and looking at that perspective. Another way that we can look at it from an operator perspective, if you wanted to go actually to the actual service map itself, we could just highlight it, go right to the service map, and you can get a different perspective. And that different perspective will say, hey, wait a second, here's the jigsaw puzzle, but this is the piece in the jigsaw puzzle that we have the alert on, right? And we can start to look at that from that perspective. And they can say that, oh, okay, we can expand that out and where this comes together. And so we're starting to get that true visibility of bringing in, okay, my CMDB visually, as well as bringing in the events from an external system and highlighting it here and saying, okay, this is the one that's the problem. Now, what do we do from that perspective? Different ways we can do it. Let me try this one. Let's go to a full map view. And I love this view. Let's see if this will cooperate with me today. Yep, it is. Now, the thing I like about service mapping, it has a whole bunch of cool little tools within inside it. And one of the things I love about it is that you see here at the top, you have a historical view of it, right? Chronological view of this service map, right? So if you look at here, we zoom in a little bit, you can see that this green line here, that was the historical part. So if I go back just a couple of minutes here, if I rotate back, you can see that, hey, at this given time, this is what the service map looked like. Nothing had changed. We didn't have any alerts or any changes notified with it. Everything was fine at that given point. But if I go a little bit fast forward here where the red bar is at this time, it says this is what it looked like back then. That was just a couple of minutes ago. And you can see, all right, from that perspective, our configuration item put together with our service mapping, highlighted in red here, what's the actual configuration item that has the potential issue, that alert that we got from Splunk, okay, bringing in our event management, bringing in the events from the event source, which is Splunk, then generating that alert, as well as, hey, the configuration item, which is in the CMDB. Oh, and by the way, in ITSM, we created an incident for this, right? So if we need to put it onto an agent, a technician, and so forth, that's fine. If we fast forward to near real time here, we can see what is happening. Okay. Now, different ways that we can start to remediate this, right? This is, it gets to that next level. Walk, crawl. This starts to get into that run perspective where what we could do is whoever has the right privileges can go to that part of that service map. They can just select remediate options and can give you a list of all the approved valid workflows that could be run on this configuration item. Right? And I remember back in the day working in IT, I'd have to run some SQL scripts on some SQL Server databases, and I didn't write the script, right? So wasn't too sure what was going to happen here with the delete and purge type of things. But these are the approved, complied workflows that we can work with this configuration item. In this case, it's increased storage for this demonstration, or you can say, I can approve this, and then it can automatically get remediated. Or if we want to do that DevOps perspective of having to run something without approvals, you can do that as well. So if I just run this actual workflow, you can start to see where our orchestration comes into play. And this is the actual IT workflow coming into play here. Those who haven't seen this before, they could run this. And if I go off to the right here, you can see that the activities that are in blue, they have finished, meaning that, okay, I got the host name. Did I retrieve the host name? Yes. Okay, got it. Okay, now I need to do a couple checks. And then that's what's running in green. Those that were errored out would be red, canceled, or timed out, or restarted in some fashion. So that's always nice to look there. So if I just do a little, almost a refresh, what's going to happen here is that we're going to create the change record, associate that with the incident record. Once that's approved, and which we've already automated here, we'll go out and increase, maybe go out to SCCM or what have you to increase the actual SAN storage or the cloud provider that we're dealing with. And and in that case, what we'll do, we'll notify the owner that something has happened, and we're going to close out the alert and a simple workflow. Let's just refresh that. And we can see that in this case, that everything is completed successfully. We didn't get anything errored out. If it got errored out, then we can do a retry of the workflow, or we can notify whoever that may have to do something the old-fashioned way by going out there and do it manually, right? So diving back, we've got our context of the workflow. Here's our actual, now the topology of the service map. You can see that if we zoom in a little bit here, you can start to see that, hey, there was a detected change on that server with approval, okay, from that perspective, on that timeline. if I let this draw out, give it like a couple more seconds or minutes, we can start to see the actual comparison of before and after. Start to see that timeline. If I go back a little bit in time here, you can see this is what it looked like. Okay, so it's that piece of evidence that says, hey, if you needed to get some compliance and say, hey, this is what the actual business service looked like. These were the associated alerts, the incidents, and so on. Right? Now, if I go in near real time, I can speed back up. This is what it looks like right now. So if you have that what bump in the middle of the night, okay, this is where everything can come together instead of people making phone calls and bringing bridges together. This can make life a little bit more convenient. Now, if we want to do a comparison of what were the changes and so forth, again, let's see if we have enough time here. You can see that, yeah, there's been some changes from this perspective over here, okay, at this time to this time. So you can do a comparison from this point in time to this point in time, or what you see here, point 1 and point 2. And if you want to do a comparison, you can compare, okay, from that point in time to here, say at that point, what were the changes? And you can see here a little bit. Let me scroll in a little bit, zoom in. Okay, you can see what was updated. And if we start to open this up a little bit, you can start to see that, hey, these were the properties that were updated. In this case, here's an example of, this was the old PID, this is the new PID, was it a version, so forth. And I've seen some scenarios where you want to keep track of the actual configuration directory, right? The configuration file, where the configuration file had changed. So like, for example, if we have some verbose logging, that was just a configuration file that you put in a release and the developer forgot to comment out or make something true to false, you could see those changes as well. Or if someone went in there, right? I've been there before. I just went to the configuration item. I said something from true to false. We detect it. You make that change, and all of a sudden, oh, wow, the database server starts filling up and so forth with the error logs or logging, and all of a sudden the performance goes down. You're like, hey, what happened? I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. But this is where that walk, crawl, run, and some kind of sprinting comes into play. And that's where that service mapping comes together and comes back to getting back to that CMDB. Right. So with that being said, oh, well, let's see, hey, let's go backwards here and see what things look like from my operator workspace. We're back from 32% back to A-OK, and everything right now is fine until the next event, right? And so that comes together from that perspective of, in one way of looking at visibility and health of the actual ServiceNow system itself. Now, with that being said, I just want to recap the ending of this tech talk for this week. We have a recap, the ServiceNow platform, it's a one data model, right? Bringing together, we're not in separate databases and so forth, right? It gets the same structure and they're related and somehow, and you can start to look at that from our database schema with inside the platform. A single architecture, you're not bolting things together, meaning that I remember the old days when you bolted this one thing, and gave you that thing. But what happened when you updated that one thing? Well, the other thing didn't work, right? Because they weren't on the same operating system, or one operating system wasn't supported by the other. They got that one data model, one architecture, and one data model. Forgot about that. Sorry. Now the CMDB is only as good as its data, right? It doesn't help when you've got 45-day-old data that doesn't mean anything today, because right now we need the freshest data to keep the services on, right, and up and running. And for compliance purposes or enterprise architecture purposes or just audits, right? It's nice to have fresh data near real time. CMDB and Discovery, automated feed of input. You know, you're creating and updating that information of those IP-enabled on-prem and cloud devices, as well as the applications running on them, right? That jigsaw, the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, right? Okay, so that's that crawling and walking perspective. Where we want to start to do that running is go beyond that discovery with the service mapping, is that top-down mapping of all devices, applications, and the configuration profiles, such as those configuration files. It just has to be something physical like that. It could be something, I guess, electronic, like a file, text file, a configuration file. of those mission services or those business services. So again, that's that jigsaw puzzle pieces all put together. And if that jigsaw piece starts to come apart, right, when we're starting to look at that, because it is, we get a configuration drift here and there, which can cause some issues, or we have new releases and updates to those applications that we're supporting. You can identify the health issues across the data center with that single management console, being proactive and reactive as well. Okay? So that completes the demonstration and presentation from this perspective. But if you have any questions, we can put some stuff in the actual chat. Chats. If you want to have any questions, you could put some stuff in the chat and we can try to answer them for you, or we can get back to you with some with our IT operations experts, SMEs. Okay, I take that as a no. So we'll close out this Tech Talk part of the series, which was ServiceNow IT Operations Management, getting visibility and health of your digital services. I want to thank you all for taking your time, joining this session, and look out for other future sessions as we'll roll them out. Okay, thank you very much, and have a good weekend.